Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of UKGenesis podcast. I'm joined by the, as usual, lovely Gary Jones and our special guest for this fortnight, Bab Saul from. Sorry, Barbara, I'm actually a bit lost. I tell you what, actually, that's a good starting point. Tell us a little bit about yourself and who you work for, and because apparently I've forgotten.
Tell us about yourself, Barbara.
Yeah.
Tell you about me. I'm Barbara Saul, or Babs, as some people like to call me, which I used to hate, but I don't mind it so much anymore. I work under two names, mostly the blog mistress, because I was so named, goodness knows how many years ago, when I set up a friend with her WordPress blog. And she said, "Oh, you're my blog mistress." And I thought, well, I can work with that. And the domain name was free, so I just taken it on. But I have the other website, which is just barbarasaul.com, which is just where I share my online marketing ideas and thoughts and things like that. So that's all very relaxed and vague. But the blog mistress is purely for WordPress.
Okay. And how long have you been doing it for?
How long have I been doing it for? I've been doing web design since '99, when I just sat up with a laptop and Dreamweaver and taught myself to get on and do it with table designed websites. And then probably about 7 years ago, I discovered WordPress and wasn't too keen to start with, but it was quite clunky in those days. But then as that developed, I kind of realized that it was kind of the way to go if people want to be able to update things themselves. So and never looked back, really. I've not done a different kind of website since.
Okay. And I mean, obviously, sort of, you don't necessarily find Genesis at the same time as WordPress, but so how long was it before you came across Genesis? Was it around the same time? Was it, sort of, when was it, and what was the sort of reason that you found it?
Well, quite a few years ago, about 5 years ago, I suppose, I was working with someone on a website, and she had the Genesis license and wanted me to set it up for her and everything. And I got stuck in and did that, and it worked really nicely. It was for an online magazine site, and we used a number of the themes for that. But then I was kind of working with Thesis, and then I discovered page lines, and I quite liked that because you could do quite a lot with it. And just as I'd really nailed that and figured out how to work with it, they changed it entirely. So I thought, I was not best pleased having bought the developer license and everything. And I can understand why and everything, but I was just really miffed because I just got to the point where I knew what I was doing with it quite thoroughly and could do most things I wanted. And then I went back to look at Genesis again, and they come on, leaps and bounds, really. Started doing developing all of the themes, updating them, making them responsive, and adding new themes. And I thought, right, well, this is the way to go. Still very well supported, which of course is essential. Along the way, I've used various Woo themes and some from, the theme forest and what have you. So there's not too many makes of theme that I haven't worked with. But Genesis really is the one for me. I quite like some of the elegant themes because they can be quite pretty for some purposes, but of late I'm not so keen on them, really. And now I'm very much at the stage of wanting to take Genesis and do more of my own thing with it. So, which, we can now, and obviously with the UKGenesis support that's available, that's making it much easier. I've just developed a really simple site thanks to Sri's help, just one of his tutorials, and it just looks much better than anything else, really.
Okay. And I suppose, sort of coming back and combining those two things, you were mentioning about having used other sort of frameworks and themes and theme shops, as well as obviously the amazing work that Sridhar does within the community. Did you? Is the community around Genesis one of the main reasons that you've stuck around, or is it sort of just a really nice sort of side issue?
Well, I've only recently discovered the UKGenesis and the wider Genesis kind of support and forums and everything, and there's no reason to go anywhere else now, really. From what I can see, and I'm I'm already a big fan of Genesis, and this is just, kind of really confirms that there's good reason to stick with it. I do work with other themes. I've had a big project at the beginning of the year with a theme that somebody took a shine to, and I said, well, yes, I'll do it, and I pointed out, is it supported? Do you know that it's going to work in a year's time? Whereas with Genesis, we can probably, as much as with any other theme out there, we can probably know that it is still going to be supported. It's still going to work on WordPress. So that's a big plus. I never have any worries recommending it. That's the thing.
I mean, when you actually look at those other themes that are out there, are you sort of deep diving into the code, or is it just sort of asking about, sort of, or saying to them, from a general business perspective, do you think this is going to be around in a year? Do you think it's going to be supported, etc., etc.?
Well, I think it's quite important, because a lot of the people I work with, they don't necessarily want to touch much themselves. They kind of want a website to sit there and work for them, and to be able to edit it now and then. So, if they find in a year's time that it breaks because it's no longer working with the latest version of WordPress, because I always insist that they keep things updated, then they're going to have to spend more money to get another theme and another design in place. So I don't like to get too deep into the coding side of things, really, partly because I just don't have time, and I'm best off leaving that to the proper geeks like you guys.
So just quick announcement. If you've got any questions for Barbara, sort of Twitter, and use the hashtag Genesis UK, UKGenesis, and we'll try to answer them before the end of the show. So you said that you've got 9 years or so. You've been doing web designs since '99. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
I'm very old.
Yeah.
Old enough to be your mother's.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yes.
Ben's maybe. He's just had a birthday.
Me? No,
Yeah.
not tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow is it? Oh, happy birthday for tomorrow.
Yeah, jumping ahead there. What would you say is the biggest change in the way that web design, and obviously, aside from the obvious one of tables to CSS, what would you say is the biggest change, and what impact would you say that's had on sort of the way that you work?
It's that people, certainly moving to WordPress, people can edit things themselves. I think that's makes a huge difference. Of course, now we have to make sure things are responsive, because, even a couple of years ago, it wasn't such a big deal and everything. But now, if something doesn't look good on a mobile, then, forget it. Never mind that Google are going to start, making that it's going to make a difference when people search on Google. A lot of people are using all of these different devices. So whereas, 5-10 years ago, we had to worry about the different browsers people were using, now we've got to, not just the browsers, but the devices as well. So, you need to keep quite nimble, and that's why it makes sense to use something like WordPress, because that side of thing, and with the themes, is kind of taken care of for you. So you just use a good theme that is responsive, and you can kind of trust that you're going to be okay.
It's actually an interesting point in terms of the fact that Google is really now looking like it's going to start clamping down on websites that aren't mobile responsive. Obviously, you've been doing this for 16 years now. I mean, have you sort of? I know, sorry, I didn't. But in terms of like the customers and stuff that you've worked with, say, like in the last 2 to 3 years, have you been reaching out to them and making them aware that they need to make sure that their website is responsive, or have people been coming to you asking you about that type of thing, or is it sort of just something that people aren't generally aware of?
They're not too aware at the moment. It's something that I make sure, certainly, recently, and because I use the Genesis themes, I know that the themes are going to work. They're going to be fine. They're going to work on iPads and all sorts of things. But it's not something I've gone out and said. I probably will, because I'm going through this whole refresh of everything, of my websites and everything like that as well this month. So I will send a thing out saying, how does your website look? Or with some of my older customers, which a lot of the business I do is either repeat customers or referrals. I'm going to say, and I did actually do a blog post on Barbara Saul to just show people that if you just get your browser and make it less, narrower, you'll get some idea of how the website looks on an iPad or something.
Okay. Just before we go on to the topic of your new website, you sort of quite a nice segue about people not being aware of things. Nice question from Joe here. What is the #1 piece of word that can't be said on air? People tell you that they've been told when they approach you.
Oh goodness, there's so many things. I get a lot of people that come and say, I need to have some SEO. And actually, the other day I was in with the doctor, and he said, "Oh, so you do websites? What's this SEO then? Is this something that I need to have?" And it just depends. That's the thing. It's not something everybody has to have, and SEO is sort of a bit of a misnomer now, really. I think, because there are so many different things that we have to consider with more online marketing, and looking at the social media side of things. And it really depends on the individual website, the customer. What do their customers want and where they're going to be? And that's what you need to look at, not that you need to have your keywords in place and things like that. Keywords are pretty much irrelevant these days anyway, in my view. And so, they're not looked at too much, although I suppose it can be easy. It can kind of help people to focus on things. But when they say, "Oh, I haven't got a list of keywords in my page," I think, well, no, you don't really need them. So
just on that point, there was some people might be thinking of the focus keyword in the WordPress SEO plugin from Yoast, and there was a post by Matteo Duo, who I met in WordCamp Europe. Must be 20. Anyway, the last one, or the one before that. Anyway, and he broke down. Well, we can put this in the show notes, but he broke down kind of how the focus keyword works on the plugin, and kind of asked the guys at Yoast, does it actually help in SEO in any way? And the overall kind of response was no. What it does do, it helps you. It's a writing tool for the author, so it helps you to say, okay, well, yes, I need to get this particular word or phrase in, but it's only so that you're focused on kind of writing about that and not trying to write about everything in one particular post. So keywords, obviously the meta keywords, generally is it still Yandex that might look at them, one of the Chinese search engines, but most of them now kind of don't use meta keywords, but the kind of a focus keyword, shall we say, as a writing tool that can be used for indirectly for helping kind of SEO for that.
I think the crucial thing with that is sort of to tell clients that the green light isn't necessarily it's ready to be published. It's a tool that you can use to not just measure one keyword, but measure a couple of different keywords within that article and make sure that your article is at least ticking what is now a very small box within Google's metric for working out whether or not a website is the right one to display. Because of course the most important thing to remember is Google is trying to provide the website that answers the question the person is searching for best. It's not necessarily looking for, who's got the most keywords stuffed into a page. It's very much these days who can answer the question best. And I suppose that's a good segue again to sort of touch on what Angie has asked. Do you offer design, build, SEO, and other services to your clients or yourself? Do you handle everything yourself, or do you outsource or sort of partner with people?
Well, it depends on what we need. If somebody wants something more complex done that needs a developer, because I wouldn't consider myself a developer, then yes, I'll pull somebody in to help with that. On the SEO side of things, I can pretty much cover a fair bit, but it partly depends on the time available, because as I get busier, I need more people doing different things. So I'm always on the lookout for people who can help out with things like that. So copywriting as well, that's something that I'll outsource to people that I trust, and I need to know that people really are going to do a really good job for the clients. So I can end up project managing rather than actually getting on and doing it myself.
Okay. So I mean, do you? I mean, personally, I've started moving away from this idea of SEO being the same thing as blog writing. They're not quite the same thing. Is that sort of an approach that you take, where you try to explain to the clients that paying out for SEO does not necessarily mean that they're going to get content? Or do you find that people still have that sort of expectation?
Well, I think they don't really know what they're going to get. Certainly, the kind of clients I work with, which is a lot of small businesses. I've just started working with a client. They've paid out, hundreds of pounds and got absolutely nothing for it because they don't really understand what they were getting. So what I do is I kind of cut through all of that and say, right, for a start, you just, it's a very local business. And I say, well, it's only locally that you need to be found. So that's what you need to appeal to. You need to write for, or your pages need to be relevant for. So it's understanding where their clients are. Are they going to be looking at Twitter? Are they going to be on Facebook, or Pinterest, or LinkedIn even? It's a matter of just understanding where their customers are, which that's very much what I find clients need steering towards, to understanding not what they want but what their customers want.
Who would you say is your target audience for your clients, and how does your marketing try and target those? Do you try and find them, or do you filter out everybody and only just pick the target people that you're trying to work with?
To be honest, it's I think I've been around for so long now that people just come to me at the moment, and it's only now that I consider, taking my business onto the next stage, that I start looking at my marketing and who I'm actually going to be marketing to. So, I need to get blogging myself more, because whenever I do that, then I get more attention, of course, and do the online workshops, and start doing some active marketing. But at the moment, it's all, very much a lot of referrals, has been keeping me quite busy, quite busy enough.
Okay.
Which is a lovely position to be in, indeed. But if you want to grow and develop, then I kind of think, well, do I get the other people in place first and then build the business, or what? It's
And how would you see your business growing? Is it kind of we mentioned in the last couple of podcasts about kind of potentially moving up to be an agency, or do you just mean to have a higher quality, perhaps a higher paying level of clients? How do you see your business growing?
Well, I quite like working with small businesses. They're quite easy to please quite often, some of them. And that's what I enjoy doing. I like, kind of cutting through the nonsense for them and with them to say, look, yes, you can, you don't have to pay somebody £100 every time you want a web page edited. You can go in and do it yourself if you're using WordPress. You just have to keep it updated and all this kind of thing. So, and quite often if I host them as well, I'll just make sure they're updated anyway, because that's the best thing for me anyway, for my server. Because otherwise I'm the one that's going to get problems down the line potentially. So, and I quite like doing that. It's not going to make me, the biggest agency in the country or anything, but it's what I quite enjoy doing. And I have got some bigger clients and things, but nothing too big. But that kind of works for me at the moment.
You mentioned about some online workshops. Is that something you're keen to grow, and kind of how and what sort of things do those workshops cover?
I've done them before. I haven't done any for a couple of years now, I think. But I do quite like doing them, and it's just sort of, again, helping people and showing people step by step what to actually do themselves with a screencast. So, how to set up the basics in WordPress, and I try and include a short video with my blog posts so that people can actually, that prefer to see things being done, can follow that, as well as write things out. So yes, I'll do some workshops, and I'll probably do a few where, on the online marketing side of things, and say, well, this is what the kind of thing that, if you think you need SEO, these are the things that you can do that may be helpful for you, and maybe even do a few where they can tweak some of the design, but I'm not so sure about that.
So does that all fall under your blog mistress kind of branding?
I think it does, yes. I'm sort of, kind of wondering, should I move just web design across to Barbara Saul, and just have WordPress support and the workshops under the blog mistress? But I'm still in two minds about that, really.
For what reasons? Why the hesitation there?
I don't know, really. I think, sometimes, I mean, my son's school, for instance, they can't see my website because it's got the word mistress in it, which is utterly ridiculous. But, it's kind of there, and I don't fully own the name, which I kind of should just get on, and I am the blog mistress and you'll just do as you're told, sort of thing. Because that's what most of my clients want. They just want me to take care of things for them.
Yeah.
So,
well, what would you what's the typical type of person who comes to you and asks you about your, sort of online workshops? Is it somebody who's, running a small business? Is it just somebody who wants to set up their own blog? Is it somebody who's maybe on a hosted platform like WordPress.com and wants a little bit more control over how their blog looks?
It's a lot of one-man bands, self-employed people who kind of want, they want a great-looking website, and they've heard about this WordPress, and they kind of have dabbled a little bit with it, perhaps. But they want to make sure they get the most out of it. There's one guy who's, perfectly capable of doing it all himself, but he kind of likes to have his hand held while he's doing it, or else, some other people are just too busy to do it themselves. So. Do
you find that many people sort of take the approach of being a one-man band and thinking, oh, this WordPress thing, I've heard it's easy to change, I've heard it's easy to use. They try to do it, they maybe come on your workshop and then suddenly realize, well, this is actually well beyond what I can do, and then end up transitioning to, Barbara Saul as the web designer and developer? Or do you find that they tend to be very much the type of person of, I don't care if this takes me all year to do, I'm going to do it myself?
It depends on how good they are at their own business, is the thing, I suppose, really. If they get busy themselves with what they're doing, then they don't have time to look after things themselves. So then they'll just pull me in to get things sorted out. I've got some ones that I don't get hacked. It happens all the time. So you need to be careful of that. So it's, I've got some people who like to tweak things themselves and kind of fall over, trip over, and things go wrong, and they end up with the white screen of doom. But most of them I've kind of set up with a regular backup, so we can pull it back from there anyway. But I do type. I've got one blog post which I need to update that takes people through the things that you need to be aware of, that you need to keep things updated, and that you should do this before you update, and you've got to have your FTP details, because if things go wrong, you might need to actually go in there and pull off a plugin or something like that.
Okay.
So
we've got a question from Ginger, and by all means, if you have any questions for Barbara, put them.
I want to know where my scones are.
I don't know. Gary's got them. Show them, Gary.
Show the scones.
Just unmute myself, because that's not going to help otherwise. Yeah, just as Ginger asked her question, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, she mentioned about baking some scones, and I quite cheekily said, well, if you send me some, I'll eat them for you, and I'll give them a review. And so, unfortunately, the postage from the US was going to be far too extortionate, but she did order me some scones from the UK. You see that, called from Sconnoisseur, which I thought was lovely. So it's got some nice scones in there. She sent me some jam down here somewhere as well. So thank you very much for those, Ginger. I shall give them a review. I haven't tried them yet, but I shall give them a review, and they will be very much eaten with delight, I'm sure. So thank you very much for that.
I think, Ginger, you're just going to have to convince Gary to go to a WordCamp in the US that you're going to, and mob him.
I'll try them myself, yeah.
Yeah. So Ginger's question was, what tools do you use on a daily basis for client work and also for your business?
I use Hootsuite to keep on top of the Twitter side of things, and that's absolutely essential for that. And for most, I use Gmail for email, and I use Google Docs a lot. I actually just create a sheet for each client and keep that updated, and my VA shares that with me, so she can see what's going on and update clients and things like that. And that's pretty much it, I think.
Your Mac.
I've got a... Pardon?
I'll do a quick fire round. PC or Mac?
PC at the moment. You guys, stop it! You know that I use
PC.
PC.
Macs, but we don't hate PCs.
I know, but I want one. I want a Mac with big screens. I would be so happy. But
if anybody wants to buy Barbara a Mac, by all means, we'll set up a donation page.
It needs to be a laptop thing, because I work. Because I've got a slight disability, I work from the sofa, so I've got a laptop here, which, so I have to work within my 17 inches, which I kind of miss having another screen, especially the 27-inch screens that you get with a Mac, because a couple of those would just be heaven. I'm looking forward to one of these NCIS things or CSI things where you have all the screens up in front of you and you swoosh things all over the place.
Microsoft Holodeck.
You mentioned... sorry, we'll try and talk. You mentioned, Barbara, that you pass some things on to your VA, your virtual assistant. How have you managed to kind of separate what they can do from what you can do and assign those tasks as needed?
Well, she takes care of the invoicing and keeping in touch with clients. We're kind of in early days at the moment, so she's kind of dragging control away from me, so that I just let her get on with it. But the thing is, because with a lot of clients, it's, for so long they've known that they can just quickly Skype me or even on Facebook, because a lot of them are friends as well. They can just grab me on Facebook and say, oh, my hosting's down, or something like that. But I'm trying to really move it across so that I can not have to keep an eye on emails all the time.
How did you find this VA? Is she local, or
she's somebody that I know, and I've kind of tried before to work with people. I'm really quite wary, because with previous developers, I've kind of things haven't gone quite as well as they might have. but she's actually a friend of mine. She's up in the Midlands somewhere. I can't remember where she's exactly. North of Milton Keynes, anyway.
Milton Keynes is not the Midlands.
No, well, which is to me, I'm down in Kent, so. But anyway, she's someone I know and can absolutely trust, and that's the thing. And I'm quite happy for her to just take as much as she wants away from me. She's not going to be getting involved with the WordPress side of things so much, but the whole, the administration and accounting, that's her baby. So that works really well.
You said that you've had a couple of bad experiences with developers in the past. I know that one thing I've found and a couple of other people have found is that it can be quite difficult to find developers who have an understanding of Genesis, especially developers in the UK. Is that something that you've come across, and is it actually that important, really, at the end of the day?
It will be now because Genesis is my theme of choice. So whoever I work with has got to be.
I think you're breaking up slightly there, Barbara.
Works in America, pretty much full on Genesis anyway. So I know where to come now. So.
Okay. I suppose a good question would be, if there was anything in Genesis that you could change, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't mind some different kind of feeling themes. I can't help thinking they feel a bit samey sometimes. But I mean, and now that's why I'm sort of looking to, tweak things myself, create themes myself. So, and looking at other developers, what they've actually created. So, I'll have a good look around all of those, because the new themes on StudioPress, they're absolutely beautiful. But some of them, I think, well, could I have that, but with a sidebar? And things like that. I think it's I can't remember which one it is, the white space one. I absolutely love it, but I want a sidebar on it, and there isn't one. So, I thought, well, okay, so you need to spend a bit of time and put one on.
Okay. So, talking about no sidebars, obviously the biggest news that's come out of the Genesis community in the last 2 weeks is that Brian is stepping aside, I believe, is the politically correct way of talking about it, and Lauren Mankey, who was the creative director, correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, at Northbound Design, which is one of my favorite Genesis agencies, has now taken over operations. I'm not sure. I think she's still creative director at StudioPress.
She was I think she was creative director. I think she still had Northbound Design as it was before, and she's been with StudioPress as creative director since May 2013. So this is now her kind of stepping into Brian's shoes, basically, and having the power to make the decisions regarding kind of everything pretty much under the StudioPress brand, as I understand it. And obviously Brian is going on to move, as covered in the Genesis Office Hours, is doing his no sidebar and his podcasts and so on outside of the StudioPress, but still within the copy blogger media. So that's where kind of Lauren stands on that.
Yeah. What's your opinion, Barbara?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Brian's been in charge for all the time, so it'd be interesting to see what what new things along, if any, or if things just carry on as they have been. But it'd be good to see. I love what's happening with Genesis anyway. It just seems as though with the Slack groups and things like that we're kind of all pulling together a bit more. I don't know. I'm just kind of quite new to that. So for all I know, you've been doing this for years. But with UKGenesis, with the virtual WordCamp and things like that, it's all great. And it's just going to make Genesis even better and better. And I'm sure that Lauren will be keen to see what we're all on about as well, I imagine.
Speaking of UKGenesis meetups, Joe will hit me if I don't mention this. The next Genesis UKGenesis meetup is at WordCamp London, which is not this weekend. It's the weekend after. Runs from the 20th, which is a contributor day, Gary?
It is, yeah. Friday the 20th is contributor day.
The three-track conference is on the 21st and the 22nd. I know I'm speaking there. I know Joe is speaking there. I don't know if there are any other Genesis users talking there. There were a couple of surprise Genesis users talking at WordCamp Birmingham when we went. But yeah, so the meetup is on the Friday, I believe.
Yeah, 5 o'clock on the Friday at the London Angel Islington Premier Inn Hotel Bar. If you go to ukgenesis.co.uk/meetups, then all the details are on there, and there's a form there. So if you're interested in coming and you haven't already told Joe, then fill that in just with your name and the contact details. So if for whatever reason we have to change location and you haven't kind of, for whatever reason, why would you not follow on the UKGenesis Twitter account, then Joe can just send you an SMS so that you know where we've changed to, or if there's any other kind of differences. We don't want to have people kind of turn up and find that we've moved on to somewhere else. So,
as happened at Birmingham.
As happened at WordCamp Birmingham, yeah. We left.
So it's not an idle threat. We do move occasionally. Got a question from Paul and from Vaughan in a similar vein, and it comes back to what you were talking about before. Vaughan asked, do you try and aim for a particular design style in your projects, and are there any design features that you especially dislike? Paul asked, would you like, or would you do generalist themes or industry-specific themes? And I guess the question comes back to, what is it about the Genesis or the StudioPress themes that are in the marketplace right now that you do and don't like, and have you looked at sort of third-party theme shops, or is that not something that you would consider?
I'm not industry specific, although because of the whole referral side of things, I end up working with quite a few construction firms. And then it's a lot of, like I say, self-employed one-man bands, so professional services sort of thing. But it is quite general and very much dependent on their branding and things like that. And what I'll do is look at their content, what they actually need the website to be doing, and then work out the theme that's going to work best for them, and what we can tweak. I had a client I'm working with at the moment. He wanted one of the parallax themes, but with a video running in the background. And I said, well, why do you want that? Because that's the thing. Whenever somebody says, oh, I need this, I'll say why. Because as I'm concerned, every part of a website needs to earn its keep. And he said, oh, well, it looks really nice. I said, yes, I know, but all the time that people are looking at your video, they're not doing what you want them to do, are they? Oh, yeah, okay, I suppose. But he kind of had in mind this really sexy website, which it still will be, but it just doesn't necessarily, it's going to do what he wants it to do from a business point of view, not from a, oh, that's the cat, by the way. Not just because it looks good. So I'm not sure if I've answered all the questions there, really.
Yeah, so. I think so. I mean, I guess it's very much that you're not specifically aiming for any particular look. It's very much, as I personally believe is the correct approach, the content is dictating the design rather than trying to sort of like just what was the saying that my ex-design team used to say whenever we worked on a magazine? Stop trying to hit a square peg into a circle hole. It doesn't work,
Absolutely, yes. That's the thing. I mean, I've done another very small project, and I put it into the the very basic Genesis theme, and they looked at it and said, "Oh, well, that's horrible." I said, "Yes, but so give me your content, tell me what you've got, and then I can do something with it." And now we've ended up with something much more professional looking, and that looks it'll work a treat for them. And sometimes it's only when you put one thing up, then they see, oh, but I know, I need it to do this, and I need people to see that, and then you can actually get to what is actually going to work best for them.
Do you look at any sort of metrics to work out that you've achieved whatever you were trying to help them achieve, be it an increase in leads or conversions and so on? Do you look at that aspect?
Well, I need to know what the website, what they expect of the website, what it needs to be doing for them, and then indeed, a few months down the line, we'll see if it is actually doing that. So it's not not any specific metrics that we use, because people are going to know straight away whether it's doing the job or not.
Do you have how much creative control does the client have? Do you send them a series of themes that they want to that you recommend to them? Do they come to you with themes that they'd like to use, or do you not give them the choice at all?
Again, it very much depends on the client. I've had two who've come to me and say, I want to use this theme, and that hasn't been Genesis, and I'll do it and do the best I can with it, after advice, suggesting that, is this going to last forever? What's going to happen when we update? There was one very recently, just before I went live, the latest version of WordPress, the latest subversion 3, whatever it is, it came out that weekend, and the theme broke. So just as it was going live, so I had to quickly do a fresh and it just wouldn't work. It wasn't going to have it at all. So I quickly did it on a fresh WordPress install, did all of the tweaks and all this kind of thing, and quickly got it up, and that worked fine. But I just sort of make a note to the client that, watch out next time, because you might have the same problem, because the theme, isn't necessarily going to be as robust as you need it to be.
Would you consider charging more for somebody who's going to use a theme that you're likely to run into problems with, or do you just try to keep the price the same?
I'll generally say it costs more. It's the same with hosting. If they want to keep their own hosting, and I know that it's going to be a pain in the rear end, I'll charge more. I just say, I'm sorry, if you want to stay with one-on-one, then you pay double. Daddy, yes. It's not that I want to host them myself. I'm not that fussed about that. I just have the server there and keep it just for clients.
So do you have a series of recommendations in terms of, if you host with company A, company B, or company C, there's going to be a surcharge because they are notoriously difficult to deal with. However, I recommend so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. It's up to you which one you want to go with. Basically,
yes. It's not that formal, and I must put it into my terms, which I'm just reviewing at the moment. That indeed, I know that there can be problems. Not always. Sometimes things are great. I've just done a GoDaddy one, and there was no problem at all. But sometimes there is a problem, and you
allegedly
know that it's going to be several days before you get any help.
Yeah. Interesting question that I know a couple of people have raised previously. It's something that seems to be coming to the fore as more people who've done themes start to consider doing their own, or launching their own theme shops. Have you ever had a situation where you've had a client, or you presented to a client a theme that you suggested they use, and they've gone, oh no, I can't use that. I'm a builder. That's a theme for a dentist.
No, because quite often I'll have put their branding into it somehow first, so they don't get to see that. I have before sent people to the themes site to say, have a look through those and see if any take your fancy, but actually that doesn't work too well. You sort of end up thinking, well, I don't know. You tell me, what do you suggest? Well, actually, that's what I want them to say. That's the thing to do. Say, go and have a look at those and pick a few that you like the feel of. I'll generally say, can you tell me other sites that you like the look of? Because they need to really like the website themselves as well. But sometimes if they're not paying very much, then they need to kind of just let me get on with it and do the best that I can for them. Quite often they'll come to me because they think I know what I'm talking about. So
We've got 3 questions from Angie, if we can drop there. So, just related to what you're talking about is, do you get your content from the client before you start on the design, which I think you kind of covered.
Yes.
You said you put a sample on first.
I have to.
Do you offer a maintenance contract to your clients, and which backup plugin do you use?
I do maintenance contracts, yes. If I host them, I just include it anyway because, which is probably very cheap for them, but I know that the hosting's fine. I know that it's in my best interests to keep them updated as well. But yes, I do have some other clients that I have some maintenance contracts, and I kind of help out with other bits as well. They're sort of like not just doing maintenance, it's doing, adding on blog posts for them and making them look good and making sure the images are the right size and all this kind of thing. So,
do you limit the amount of time that you offer for that? For example, my own support maintenance contract has a maximum amount of time of 2 hours per month. It can be rolled over, but I mean, do you do a similar thing, or is it actually unlimited?
No, I do limit it because otherwise, goodness, you'd end up doing a whole new website, wouldn't you? So you can't do that.
I shudder to think what people would do.
Well, actually, do you know what? It probably wouldn't be that bad if you were to charge, a sensible figure and say you get unlimited support. There's probably an awful lot of people that wouldn't take advantage, but then some people would. So you have to allow for that, unfortunately. As for which backup plugin I use, I love Updraft Plus because I know it works really well. I move sites over. I'll create a site on a test domain, and then I just back it up and migrate it, and it works really nicely every time, and that's what it needs to do.
So do you, I suppose, just to quickly go back for tools, I mean, what code editor do you use?
Oh, I've just got
Is
something
it
called...
Dreamweaver?
No, oh goodness, no, I'm a very old version. I've given that to my son now. I've just got a programmer's notepad and just work with that.
Okay. Local or live? Do you work locally, or do you work on a
I'll
server?
only do live if it's on a test domain.
Okay.
Because then you kind of know, when I'm doing a new site, I'll do it on a test live site so that I know it, what it looks like.
What do you use for local-host then?
I don't. I do it live.
Oh, sorry, I'm just getting lost there. Do you use any type of preprocessors, or do you just use vanilla CSS and?
Oh gosh, yes, I'm pure vanilla.
Pure vanilla. And do you use any kind of photo manipulation tool like Photoshop or anything like that?
My son is actually using Photoshop. He's learning Photoshop. He's doing graphic design, bless him.
Is he going to be joining you on the site? Or?
Well, I might, sort of like, I want him to do some little Lego things for me because I quite like using Lego minifigures for some of the blog posts. I use Fireworks because it's just something that came with Dreamweaver all those years ago when I started, and I know what to do with it, and I probably only use 1/10 of what it can do, but it does as much as I need it to do. And that's just what I know, and I look at Photoshop and get totally lost. So I just keep with my what must be ancient now Fireworks, CS3, and that works fine. So
got a question from Paul, and just to clarify to Paul, I'm downstairs because the entire upstairs of my house was being ripped up yesterday, so I had to decamp. It's not actually specially for this. Paul asked, do you talk about the value of WordPress and Genesis with clients, or do you not mention one, the other, either, both?
I do mention it, probably more than I should, because a lot of my clients, they don't know what it is, and they don't want to know what it is. They just want to know that they can edit things themselves. But I will talk about the fact that there are millions of people using WordPress, that it's updated all the time, that people are developing it and working on it, that there are these wonderful little geeks in their basements developing lots of new functions and plugins for us all the time. So, and indeed with Genesis, I'll share with them that they do keep things up to date. They do support things. If they can provide an improvement for Genesis, they will. It will always work with the latest version of WordPress, and that's essential, really. Otherwise you're just going to end up with problems maybe not too far down the line.
Okay.
Have you been to any WordCamps or any local WordPress meetups?
I haven't yet, no. Partly because of mobility is not ideal for me, which is again why I've kept things quite small, because I can't go out and meet clients so much. I really wanted to come to the London WordCamp and to the Contributor Day to kind of do something, give something back, and volunteer there as well. But of course, I've got these gallstones which need to come out of me now, so I should be dealing with that, and I can't come, and I'm really annoyed. But I will be along to one in the future. And I'm a bit daunted about going to some of the local ones, because I just imagine all these young chaps there who are going to talk geek all the time, and I'm a very soft geek, really, who doesn't code too much and doesn't get into development. I just feel a bit, oh no, I do feel like people's mother going along and chatting about things, which is ridiculous, really, but never mind.
Do you have any starter theme that you always work with, or just whichever kind of existing theme seems to just fit best with what the client wants, and then you amend from there?
I'll see. I have kind of looked and seen what will work best, but now I am finding that I'll start with the starter theme and develop from there. And see what works. I quite like the parallax themes, but I'm almost going off that now. So maybe that's just a bit of a fad. Perhaps a bit like having a slider on things all the time.
Where do you get your inspiration from?
Ooh.
Who are you inspired by?
Well, you lot at the moment. I don't just mean you two, but the Slack group. I'm sort of like pop in there and see what's going on, and go and have a look and think, oh yes, that looks nice, and we can do something with that, or maybe we can tweak this or that. And just being online pretty much all the time, you sort of look around and visit things and think, oh, that looks good, and see what's going on.
If there was one thing that you could tell yourself, your younger self, when you were first starting out in development, what would it be?
Oh goodness. Get into WordPress sooner. Don't bother messing about with page lines. And trust your instincts more. Basically, go with your gut feeling every time. And if something just feels like it's too good to be true, when somebody comes along and says, "Oh, we can develop this agency, and between us, we'll do this, that, and the other."
Big red flags.
Yeah. It's taken me this long to actually work my way through all of that, bringing up a couple of children along the way as well, mind. But it's.
Well, you've got a son who's getting old enough now to start contributing back, haven't you?
He can, yes, indeed. I'm actually going to invest in all sorts of minifigure bits and bobs, and between us, he's actually going to have like a work shadowing day with me, which is going to be really weird because I work from home, but his dad works the other side of London, so that's really not very sensible. I'm going to work him so hard. And have him putting together all these little minifigures to go with different pages, like the WordPress MOT I do, and the maintenance page, and rescue, and things like that. So with little minifigures with capes on and what have you. So it should be good fun.
Actually, it comes back to a point that you made before, which was that a lot of your people coming through referrals. How much of your business would you say is local? How much is in the UK? And sort of how much is sort of people who you'd never have met if it wasn't for working in the WordPress community?
Oh, locally, I did actually originally focus locally when I was a web design agency. That was local, pretty much. Although I was doing national things as well because of the networking group that I was part of, which has kind of just dissipated now. And now all of my networking is online. But I still like to do some local things as well. So, it's probably about 50-50, to be honest. So,
okay.
I've got somebody in America as well. She insists that she still wants to keep working with me, even though I say, well, you've got to pay in pounds, because the exchange rate isn't great at the moment.
Okay.
That's kind of fun.
So, 5 minutes left now, so we'll start wrapping up. Quick, well, I suppose the question that fits in neatly with that is, where can people find you online?
You can find me at Barbara Saul on Twitter. I'm there most of the time. The websites, there's blogmistress.com and barbarasaul.com, which the latter is very much what I think about online marketing, what I think works and what probably doesn't so much. And that's it. I sort of, mostly Twitter. Pardon?
Short and sweet.
Yes.
Find you on Slack as well?
Oh, of course, yes. I'm on Slack and dip in and out of that through the day. So.
Okay. And the question that we're going to be asking every guest, who would you like to see in the UKGenesis community on the podcast next?
George Clooney.
George Clooney.
I do think he's either in the UK or based in the UK or using Genesis.
Okay, well, we'll go with Benedict Cumberbatch then.
Again, I don't think he is, but we can try. I have limited contacts.
I'm looking forward to seeing as many people as we can, and for the people who are quiet on there as well to just go for it. I mean, I wanted to have my websites all shiny and up to date and all this kind of thing. That's never going to happen. Well, okay, it is going to happen. It's good next month, really. But just go for it, so we can kind of get to know each other, and so I don't mind. Who have you got next?
Coming up next on the 25th of March, we've got Thomas Jones. He is one of the guys who helped set up the UKGenesis.co.uk website, so a big thank you to him. Will be coming for that as well. So we've got him up next. But who would you like to see? Anyone specific, or just whoever we can grab?
Everyone.
Is there anybody in the Slack group maybe who you know is in the UK who you'd like to see more of? Obviously not.
Well, we need to get Angie on there, don't we? Because she sort of dips in and out sometimes. So. And
Angie is scheduled. Yeah.
That would be good. And Thomas is next, so that's good. Sridhar would be good. Can we get him involved sometime? I know he's over in Australia, I suppose, at the moment, but.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, well, we'll wrap up there. Thank you very much, Barbara, for joining us. And as Gary said, we will be on air 2 p.m. Next week, only fortnight on March 25th, with Thomas from, is it Base 93 these days, or?
Yeah, base93.com is Thomas's one.
Just as a heads up for any US viewers, we have not gone forward yet, and we won't have gone forward in terms of summertime until after the next episode. So we will be on an hour later for you guys if you're looking to tune in. But other than that, we will see you in a fortnight.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, Barbara.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.